I'm going to ask the Toastmaster of the day to come forward. Toastmaster Leonard Makasa, present the meeting for us today.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, our dear President. The theme of today's meeting is Thanksgiving in July. I want us to spend 60 minutes and discuss and debrief, develop this a bit further. Please turn to your closest neighbor and discuss, bring out, brainstorm what it is we can be grateful for this month of July. We have 60 seconds.
50 seconds. Okay.
Please turn to your neighbor. Thanksgiving in July. There comes Dave. Most welcome. All right. Let's hear them out. Toastmaster Patricia, what is it you could be grateful for? What could you be grateful for July instead of November? What did you come up with? Anything?
I'm just thankful for right now.
Right now. Amen. So that's very good. Something else. Sean, what could you be grateful for July instead of November? Living 2 years. Somebody else. Yes, please.
I'm grateful for my freedom, for my right to choose how to worship and how to live and who to live with.
July 4th, and the rest of the goods with it. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes, Camille.
Between me and Camille is grateful for rain yesterday.
Rain, yes.
And I'm thankful for a wedding this July.
Amen, yes.
No, he was wedded this July.
Amen to that one. President Antoinette, anything else you want to be grateful for?
Grateful for just being alive and being a Toastmaster. It's been so much to me.
Amen. Fellow Toastmasters, I'm grateful today because our own Dave is back in the fold. There are no descriptors for Dave. He just...
No description.
I know he's not been close to a medical school. Yes, he is. Actually, he's in the College of Public Health. He's touched my heart. And yet he has never been close to being a surgeon, a heart surgeon, a cardiologist. All I'm saying is I'm so grateful. He's such a delight, such a warmth, and he's tiny of stature, but he's such a force, he's such an energy that when he was away for so many weeks, we were feeling sad. And we're so grateful he's here. Now, we have a full schedule. I'm so thankful folks signed up last minute. Wish they could sign up as our Toastmaster, distinguished Toastmaster Joyce insists, 2 days before. So we plan accordingly. Fortunately, we made it to a full schedule. Our great Marian is in the house. No. Oh, I saw a shadow of Brandy. I think we move on, and she might give us the... You are the grammarian. Calm down, grammarian Jana. Grammarian Jana Jacob. You're most welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Toastmasters, and any welcome guests we have here today. Hello, young man. I've also lived 18 years. A couple of times. Our word of the day is haphazard. It's an adjective that means marked by a lack of plan or order or direction. To use it in a sentence, despite her good intentions, her speech was a haphazard attempt to fill time. Haphazard. Let's see if we can use that today while we're in our speeches and evaluations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jana. Toastmasters is about non-haphazards. We have a Toastmaster minute, and none other than our own David, back on his feet, and all the smiles and joy he brings to Toastmasters.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Mukasa. I'm small of stature, but I've been gaining some weight, so it's like Thanksgiving. I know the internet's looking at me like I don't know, but I have been, actually. My mom's cooking, I think. Craig Valentine talks about a very powerful technique that we can use to make effective points. A way to be content-rich as speakers. A way to make the audience tall, to make them think, act, laugh, and learn. Have you ever heard the PARTS formula? Let's say it together. PARTS formula. PARTS formula. A great way that we can use to make points, to make our points stick. PARTS. P stands for phrase. Let's say phrase. Phrase is 10 words or less. Foundational phrase. 10 words or less, something that is catchy, something memorable, such as your dream is not for sale. That is a point that's very memorable, such as if you don't make waves, the tide will never change. Such as if you squeeze your information in, you'll squeeze your audience out. If you're not on the way, you're in the way. A foundational phrase is something that gets people's attention. We want to get people's attention because we want to be remembered and repeated. Foundational phrase will allow us to do that. So P in the formula is phrase. A stands for anchor. Let's say anchor. Anchor, just like a boat will float away without an anchor, your point will float away in the mind of the audience without an anchor. The best anchor to a point is a story. An anecdote. Think about the A's. Anecdote, analogy, activity, acronym. Great ways to involve the audience so they'll remember your point. If you give a point and tell the audience to get up and do something, they'll remember their point. If you make a point and then give a story, tell a story, make a point, they'll remember your point. What was the point of The Boy Who Cried Wolf?
He cried once too often.
What is the whole point of that? That's right, he did cry once too often, but what's the point of The Boy Who Cried Wolf? Why do we tell it to our children? Because we want them to do something to tell the truth. So hopefully when you hear a story, you remember the point. Maybe not in that case. We've got to tell that story more. The R in the formula stands for reflect. Say reflect. Charlie, I didn't hear you say it. That's right, reflect. Most people don't do this when they make a point. When they're making a point, they talk about themselves. They talk about what they want to talk about, but they don't actually ask the audience to reflect, because wisdom comes upon reflection. And if you want to connect, they have to reflect. And to reflect, ask a question. So if you're going to make a point to this audience about barriers in life, a lot of times, are self-imposed. Instead of just saying that, you might want to ask the question, tell me, what would you do, what would you dare to dream if you knew you wouldn't fail? And if you ask that question, you're now getting the audience to think. You're reflecting. So instead of just talking about what you want to talk about, a lot of times it's not so much about what we say, it's what the audience says in their mind when we're saying it. Reflect. Wisdom comes upon reflection. And the T in the formula, and by the way, all these points in the parts formula are critical. When you're making a point, think about all these points, all these aspects of the formula. Not points, but aspects of the parts formula. The T is technique. Let's say technique. Technique is something specific, not theory. If you give the audience theory, they'll have this match in their mind all fired up with theory, but when they walk out of that room, they exit, the match burns out. So in order to have the audience continue to do what you're asking in your speech, give them a technique, specific something to do. So maybe your whole point of your speech is forgive someone in your life that has wronged you. Ask them to forgive that person. That's a specific thing to do. And then the last component is S, which is sell. Let's say sell. Sell. You have to sell the point. Sell the technique. You told them what to do, but you now have to tell them why. Why should they do it? So, for example, you told the audience to forgive someone that's wronged you, and you might say, in order for us to truly live, we must be willing to forgive. You've told them what to do, you tell them why. And if you use this parts formula, phrase, anchor, reflect, technique, sale, if you use this parts formula, you'll be content-rich, and you'll make the audience think, act, laugh, and learn. Use it for every point that you make. Think about that formula. Mr. Toastmaster.
Amen to that one. Most welcome back home. We have to remember. We have to remember the formula. A full schedule of speakers today. We are so grateful. 3 speakers. Our first speaker is none other than distinguished Toastmaster Adrian Duncan. He will be evaluated by Toastmaster Jerome. Our second speaker is distinguished Toastmaster Joyce Bido. She will be evaluated by Toastmaster Charlie. And our third speaker is Toastmaster Patricia Miner, who will be evaluated by none other than our president. Let's welcome our first speakers, fellow Toastmasters. Distinguished Toastmaster Adrian Duncan. Come to the lectern. Take you to the lectern. Take you to the lectern. Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Picasso, and fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests. Imagine a book that's at least 3.5 to 5 inches thick. My supervisor told me we're going to review this 1.5 year summary of a student. You've got 2 days to do the total summary of this 1.5 year, 3 to 5 inches thick. To me, that was a conflict. Number one, I was a blind person, totally blind, with at least 700 or 800 pages to review with no sight. That's a conflict. I had no assistant and no helper. That's a conflict. Question: if you were totally blind, what would you do with 3 to 5 inches, 700 or 800 pages to review over 1.5 years? Turn that review in because it had to go to another state. That review had to be done because unless you turn that review in, the company does not get their paycheck that month. What would you do?
Ask for help.
There, number one, ask for help. I went to 10 different people in the company to ask them for help. The person said to me, I have 10 children. I have a suggestion. That person said to me, accept people as they are, not how you think they should be. I asked another person, they said, accept that person as you find that person, not as you think they should be. I went to another person that had been in the company at least 15 years. That person said, stop, look at the person or persons that did those evaluations each month in those 18 months. Then look to see the solution or resolution. I went back and asked another person. That person had been in the company doing this type work for over 38 years. I said to that person, what would you do? They said, sit down with this administrator and supervisor and ask them to go over the entire 18 months with you. That's what I did. I went to that administrative supervisor and said to that person, how can I resolve this situation since I've only got 2 days to do this? This supervisor took the time haphazardly, y'all didn't catch that, went through the entire 18 months with me, went through drawing red lines and question marks and exclamation points until the entire document looked like it was bleeding from the top of my head to the tip of my toe. Took almost 3 hours to go through this 18 months document. What did I do? I went back to my office and I said, Lord, I need some help. This conflict is way over my head and this has got to be turned in by Friday afternoon, because if the other state does not get this information, we get no paycheck, which was about $7,000. Tell me, what would you do if this was done haphazardly to you as a totally blind person? Yeah. What would you do? What I did is I went back to the person that had done most of these evaluations, and I said to this beautiful young lady, I said, you know, you're one of the most brilliant persons, intelligent people I've met. I know you are very capable of doing this evaluation, because I noticed that all of these approvals have been done by the administrator with her approval, her signature, and her initials. I sat down and I asked this young lady, I said, would you assist me in doing 1-page or 2-page or 3-page summary of this document since there's 18 months there? She said, I'll be happy to. Can you believe what that conflict resolution came to? It was not haphazard. You didn't catch that. I sit back in my chair and I said to her, what shall we do? What would be your preference? What would be your suggestion in completing this document? She said, look at the final page on each one of those months and put together a paragraph that will consist of at least 8 or 9 paragraphs that would summarize each one of those months. That's what we did. You will not believe this. In less than 2 hours, we had that summary done. This lady was bright. She was not haphazard. I sat back in my chair, and I said to myself, I said, self, what am I going to do with this document? I went and I made 5 copies. I had a secretary up in the administrative building over there. I went up there and I asked this lady, Miss Lillian, I said, would you do me a favor at 4:25 today? Now, why did I say 4:25 today, where it would not be haphazard? She would make my copy. Yes, she would make my copies, and they would not be haphazard. And I asked her, I said, Miss Lillian, review this afternoon when you have time, or in the morning. She got there at 7 o'clock every morning. She was one of those few people that didn't show up haphazardly. Haphazardly, she did not show up. She came in the next morning and she said, Mr. Adrian, there's 5 errors in this document. With your permission, I'll change them since I have them on my computer already. I said, what? Praise the Lord. That's not haphazard. Y'all hear me? She had that document looking good. She said, I will change these 5 words to make your sentence structure correct, and I will make your 5 copies. I will have them done at 7:31 this morning. Woo! Hallelujah. Y'all can't believe. I went up there at 7:29. She said, I've had them done about 10 minutes. She said, what do you want me to do with these copies? I said, put one in your file under your name, your performance, and put one under my name and my performance, and put one under this beautiful lady's name. I called her name, and I said, put one in her file. I said, the other 3 or 4 that I may take with me, with your permission, I'm taking them home with me. I'm taking a break at, I'm taking a break at 9:30. I'm taking a, what do you call it, sabbatical for 15 minutes. I'm walking home and putting them in my file at home. That's what I did. I took my coffee break at 9:30. I was gone 5 minutes walking to my house. I took 5 minutes walking back, got back in my place, and I took that one document, folded up, and put it in an envelope and stuck it in the bottom of my drawer in my office. I did not turn that piece of paper in until the next day on Friday at 11:31 when it was time for her to go to lunch, and I knew she didn't have a lot of time to deal with it. And that's what I did. Let me tell you how it turned out, though. This lady called me up and she said, okay, we're going to go over this. And she said, I want you to tell me exactly what you think about it now that I'm going to read for it. She did. She took about 15 minutes and read through it. When she finished, I took my piece of paper with my envelope and handed it to her. And I said, your number 1 assistant approved this, and she approved these summaries. Your assistant approved these systems. Do you know that letter went off that afternoon? Do you know we got the $7,000? If you can sell it, if you can believe it, ask someone else if you have a conflict. Ask at least 10 other people, how can I resolve the conflict? I believe with that 3 to 5 inch book that I had to read was resolved by asking other people without being haphazard. Mr. Toastmaster, what do you think?
Thank you very much.
Will that work?
Take you down, yes, sir.
Will that work?
Most welcome.
Without being haphazard.
You sold it. Thank you very much. Our second speaker is distinguished Toastmaster Joyce Bido. She's speaking from the Manual Path Project. Speaking to inform. 5 to 7 minutes, entitled Union District Youth Association. Fellow Toastmasters, distinguished Toastmaster Joyce Bido.
Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters. As many of you have known, I have presented to you on several occasions my position as Union District Pageant Director. I'm also Union District Director of Christian Education for the Youth Department. In that position, I am responsible for the Youth Association, which occurs each August. In about 3 weeks, we will be having the next one for this year. When I distinguished VPE asked me to speak this morning, I first thought, oh, what am I going to speak on? So I thought, let me pull these manuals out. So I got the manual on Speaking to Inform, and I thought, oh, a demonstration talk. So I'm going to tell you how I pulled this massive program together. This is my Youth Association notebook. It has all my little notes in it on what I have to do. So today, I'm going to tell you in 5 to 7 minutes how I pulled this together. First thing I have to do each year is develop the theme and the curriculum. Because the National Baptist Association, or the National Baptist Convention, theme is equipping the disciples for, I can't remember the entire thing, but it's coming from Ephesians 4:12. That's what I decided to do our theme on, equipping the saints, Ephesians 4 and 12. So then I had to find lesson plans that would follow that. You wouldn't believe how hard that is. There's nothing that actually follows just that. Now you can find stuff on Ephesians, but you can't find anything that falls just on Ephesians 4 and 12. Well, it is, you can find it for adults, but for young people, that's a whole different ball game. So I had to create my curriculum. Can you believe that? So I created a curriculum. Then, the other thing we got to do is we got to find a location. What church is willing to accept us? Each year we have to do that. This year, we cajoled my church into it. But we had an ace in the hole this year. My pastor was elected the moderator of the association. Therefore, he was more willing to do that. So we're going to have the association in my church. We also have a banquet at the end of the association. So we're going to have the banquet and the association there. The association happens for 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The banquet's on Friday night. The next thing I do is I create signs for all the teachers. This is an example of the room sign for the small babies, the Sunrays, 4 to 5-year-olds, and then it has the teacher's name at the bottom. And equipping the saints, I put the sign of the theme thing on there, and then at the top it says Young People's Department of the Women's Auxiliary of Union District Baptist Association. It has the date, and this year is our 100th anniversary, so we're going to have a big thing going on. And I want to tell you, you know, this is not a haphazard deal. Because then the next thing I got to do is I got to locate my teachers. This is part of my instructor sheet. Sunrays, Sunshine Band, the Red Circle, and that's the girls. Then the Crusaders, that's the boys. Then there's some more stuff at the bottom that has the adults, but we're not concerned with them right now. Then this is the letter that I sent out to, this is the top part of the letter that I sent out to the youth directors. And at the bottom is the ticket to the banquet. Next thing we got to do is advertising and media, and I'm going to show you all of that because I haven't developed that yet. I got to meet with our media guy on Wednesday. He's going to develop me a video that we're going to send out to the churches. Next thing I do is an attendance record that I give out to the teachers every night. This is an example of it. I created that. Isn't that cool? Then I also give all the youth directors this little sheet, and I tell them, fill this out. I want to know what youth honors and awards your youth at your church have gotten. Because when we have the banquet, I give them all prizes. This is a copy of the Youth Association program. We have all these little things that we do every night. They not only go to class, but after they come back from class, we all have a general assembly, and we have one of the young people that speaks, and you'd be amazed at how well these young people can speak. Then this is an example of the association program, and then I put the officers of the Youth Association on the back, and this is the program. And that's all have to be done. But then, at the end of the association, we got to report back to the main body, the association itself. This is my report. I do this in Excel because I have to give this to the youth director so she can make her report to the association. Association, of course, don't happen until October, but I got to do this before that because I'll forget. So I do the attendance report by each age group. Then I do an offering report by each grade group. Then I do an attendance report of the youth by each church. And the reason I do that is because at the banquet we give a prize to the church, to the top 3 churches that has the most youth there. Then I also have to do a report on our banquet ticket sales. Then I have to do a report on our church registration. All of that has to be reported to the association because, you know, we have to turn the money over to the association. We don't get to keep that. But anyway, that is my report on the Union District Youth Association. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Toastmaster Joyce Bido made the case against haphazard planning. Our third speaker is Toastmaster Patricia Minor. She's talking from the Competent Communication Manual, 7 minutes, speaking your language. Speaking your language, Toastmaster Patricia Minor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to try to get through this haphazardly. Not without being haphazard. I had a haphazard weekend, actually. Somebody wanted to move, and it was of the different persuasion, not female. And when I walked through the door, I'm like, really? We had to pack and move, opposed to just move. All right, today I'm going to talk to you speaking your language. As we all know, we have many different walks of life. And according to where we may have grown up, the community that we live in, the job that we do, there are different languages. And I'm going to share with you some of those differences. Okay, how do I advance this? Okay. Language. Webster Dictionary defines language as the words, the pronunciation, and the methods of combining them used and understood by a community. That's one definition. Another definition is the vocabulary and phraseology belonging to an art or department of knowledge, the language of diplomacy, medical language. And you probably know where I'm going to go with this. Cultural language. This follows the different languages in a community. Cultural language is a language that is learned by many members of other speech communities for the sake of access to culture, of which it is the vehicle. We often talk about being culturally competent. When we go into different communities, particularly our Hispanic community, I say that because that's one of the our target populations. We have to know how to speak their language. Their language is Spanish, and of course we may not always know how to speak Spanish, but there's other things, there's their cultural practices that we also need to be familiar with in order to speak to them, in order to engage them. One of the languages that I want to talk about that is prevalent in the minority African American culture is Ebonics. I'm pretty sure you all have heard of Ebonics. Ebonics came along years ago, but it was initially labeled Ebonics in 1973 by a group of black scholars. It became popular in 1996 when an Oakland school board recognized that its primary language among some of its students was, we say slang, but this was the language that was being used among this group of people. So they thought to use this language to integrate them or to engage them into the American academic English. I'm not advancing. And this is just a little chart to kind of show you the evolution of Ebonics. Like I said, it actually came about like in the 1800s through 1960s, and it was known as African American English. And then it changed to Black English. And then in 73, it was known as Ebonics. But it didn't really take off. People didn't really pay attention to it at that time. In 83, they referred to the language that our African American population spoke as being Black Street speech. And then in 1991, it was introduced as Black communication. But in 1996, it came back around to Ebonics. I thought you guys would get a kick out of this. We are all familiar with the Lord's Prayer, correct? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. That's the English version. Now look at the Ebonics version. Yo, Big Daddy upstairs, you be chillin'. So be your hood. So be say it, I be doing it. In this here hood and yo's. Give me some eats and cut me some slack, blood. So's I be doing it to them that diss me. Don't be pushing me into no jive. And keep them Crips away. 'Cause you always be the man, G. Straight up. I wouldn't have been able to translate that. But that's the language. Some people will understand that. Now, foreign language, we have the English, we have the French, and we have the Spanish. I'm just going to show you different ways of saying things according to those languages. We all know good morning, but in French it's bonjour. In Spanish, buenos dias. For time's sake, I'm going to just skip through that, and you can see the different vernacular that is used for each language. Then we have our medical jargon, which we should all be familiar with. Me especially, being a nurse, I can talk to a patient and I would say, I need you to take this medication, PRN. They probably look at me like I'm crazy because they have no idea what that means. I'm sharing with you some of the medical jargon that you may see and know anything about. PRN as needed, MPO nothing by mouth, BID twice a day. You would be familiar with seeing some of that, and I'm going to show you where. You get those prescriptions, and your doctor has written your medication. This says amoxicillin, 250 milligrams, 2 tablets, PO, TID, times 7. But that's not what you see on your prescription bottle when you get it. Everything you may recognize, the amoxicillin, 250 milligrams, 2 tablets, you may see that. TID, now who can tell me what TID is? 3 times a day. The average person will not know that. And it's so important that even though we speak our own language, we also need to keep in mind other people's language so we may be able to translate it into something, to a language that they do understand. Speak in your language. Toastmaster Mukasa.
Thank you very much. You didn't cover one language, Luganda. I'm grateful. Moving along, we come to table topics. And now Jana Jacobs will come down again and challenge us to speak on our toes. Toastmaster Jana Jacobs.
Making a somewhat modified and haphazard attempt at my table topics today. In respect for the time, I'll start by saying summer is a time for weddings and reunions. How many people have been to a wedding already this summer? And how many people have been to a reunion of some sort this summer? So my first query to my randomly picked table topics speaker is, if you could reunite with a group of people from an especially meaningful event in your past, who would they be, and why would it be so special to you? David.
Thank you so much for that wonderful question, Madam Topic Master. It would be with my parents and my twin brother just eating dinner at the dining table. I was in Ohio for the last few weeks, seeing my parents. They live in Akron, Ohio, actually about 5 minutes from LeBron James, right down the street. My brother lives in Twinsburg. I'm a twin. It's pretty cool, right? But he came in, my parents came in. We got a chance to get together and see each other and talk. I miss that. We occasionally FaceTime. We occasionally talk on the phone. But none of that will ever replace face-to-face, catching up, looking at each other. My parents are wonderful. I'm sure you have fantastic parents. I got sick because I took an antibiotic. That's why I missed a little extra time. I took Bactrim, had an unbelievable reaction. I went to the Cleveland Clinic. I had to go to the emergency room, and I was there for like 6 hours. I had morphine. It was not good. Unbelievable 9 out of 10 scale pain for 6 hours in my shoulder, back, nausea, headache. My dad was with me for 6 hours, hearing me, groaning for 6 hours. I've never in my life done that. My dad was there next to me in this tight chair in the cramped emergency room. So lucky to have my parents. My mom cares about me so much. I'm so lucky to have her. My brother. I miss them already, and if I could just go back, have one more dinner, talk to them one more time, man, that would be great. Madam Table Topic Master.
Thank you very much. That's going to be our only table topic for today. I'll now turn it over to our general evaluator, Ms. Brandy Roberts.
Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for being late. You know how it happens. Something comes up at 11:58, and I just could not get away from my desk. But we're going to go ahead, for the sake of time, begin with our evaluators on today. So I want to call up the first evaluator for our first speech. Do we have an evaluator for the first speech? Jerome. I'm sorry, I can't see it on here. I'm sorry. Toastmaster Jerome.
Adrian, because you're the best, I graded you harder, and I moved you from the best column to the superstar class. So you're a frequent flyer. The best doesn't count anymore for you. But here are some good things. What David has stated, you went through parts like an ace, the category of LeBron James. He was playing with those kind of guys at that high altitude. You gave us a phrase, you anchored it, you got the crowd, not the crowd, but the group very engaged. By the time I could stop clapping, you just hit on another home run. The imagery was wonderful. You clearly stated the task at hand. Now, this is your last ding. Because you're a superstar class, your conclusion, I was listening for that last thing. So where's that last instruction of how and why it is important for us to assist and collaborate? You're a superstar, man.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right, so for our second evaluator, evaluating Toastmaster Joyce Biddle's speech, Charlie Simpson.
All righty. Thank you, Toastmaster. Union District Youth Association. I'm also going to put you on that superstar status. Being a DTM, so the objective of the project was to do a demonstration or talk using three main characteristics: either your body movement to demonstrate something, a physical object to demonstrate something, or a model of some sort, and to demonstrate that particular model to the audience. Now, as far as the audience interest, was the speaker, did they make the talk relevant to the audience interest? Yes. You're the person that I'll go to if I need to organize an event. You have it all laid out, and I appreciate organization like that from people because I'm not that person. I'm not as detailed. But definitely appreciated that information. Describe the demonstration's impact on you. Now, in this area, I was a little confused because the title tells us the Union District Youth Association, and I was just wondering, were you giving information on that event versus giving a demonstration on how to plan for an event? And I found myself going back to, would I go to this event, or am I trying to learn how to organize for a particular event? But it also called for the demonstration using a object of some sort, and so I wondered if the flyers would fit in that particular category. I know you said you didn't have much time to put it together, and I can see you at your desk and with all this information out and just say, hey, let me go ahead and present on that since I don't have time for anything else. But this was one thing that I thought was really interesting. It asked, what could the speaker have done to make the demonstration more effective? I couldn't come up with anything on this particular topic, but I think I go back to some previous topics, and I think you talked about being in the praise dance. No? Praise dance? Or a singer. And I would have loved to see you demonstrate how to praise dance, give a praise dance demonstration, or a singing demonstration. I think that would have been, I would have been all into that one. But overall, good job with the flyers and the organization. Thank you.
And our last evaluator evaluating Patricia's speech, Antoinette Mitchell. Toastmaster Antoinette Mitchell.
Patricia, this is your fourth speech you've told me, and this one is saying how to say it manual, project rather. And in this, you gave us words that were from different cultures. And in this, you gave us two sections that you talked about, or topics. You talked about Ebonics, you talked about the medical language as well. That was very informational for us. Sometimes we're not aware of the jargon that we're using, and we just say it haphazardly, assuming that everyone realizes and knows what that information is about. I enjoyed the speech that you gave. The last one that you gave, the last nugget that I have for you, is the closing of it. You gave us something good to leave with, and that one was, think about this. What needs to be said. That was your closing. You gave something for the audience to take back with them. I appreciated the speech. Look forward to many more to complete those 10 manuals and make your CC award. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to have our grammarian come up and talk about the English language and the usage of the word of the day, haphazard.
I feel like I'm getting my exercise today. I counted the word haphazard used 15 times. I may have missed a few, but really a very nice job by all of you for incorporating that into your speeches. Not easy to take a word that you've just heard and put it in something that you've already put a lot of preparation into. So that was great. As far as grammar usage during the speeches, I really didn't hear anything that caught my attention as being a misuse of the English language. As always, I would say that we are here to improve our professional and public communication and leadership skills, so we want to make sure that we aren't using too many that word, speech. Things like, this guy did this, or I'm gonna leave out, or I don't know if anybody actually used those words today, but that's the kind of speech that I'm talking about. I did like to hear the phrase culturally competent. I wrote that down as one of the phrases that caught my ear today. It's being able to communicate in a culture that's different from your own. And at the risk of being controversial, I also heard the words black street speech, black English, and Ebonics. And to me, that's really just code for not speaking in a language that's acceptable to the institutions and organizations in our society, or academic English. That's my 2 cents on that. Thank you very much.
All right, and we'll have our all counter, Toastmaster Camille. Come on down.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I didn't notice many crutch words used. Boo boo, there's one. Okay. In Adrian's speech, you said y'all, which is common around here. In Joyce's speech, you used gonna or wanna, and I think I heard it ain't, but overall the speeches were great. And then on Patricia's speech, I think I may have heard a maybe, but overall everyone did well. I'm new to this, so I didn't really count everything, but for the most part, I think everyone spoke well and didn't use the crutch words. Thank you.
All right, and our timers report by Toastmaster Shauna. Shauna.
Fellow Toastmasters, I haphazardly attempted to be timer again. Hopefully I did better this time. For project number 1, speaker number 1, Adrian, you spoke for 7 minutes and 34 seconds. Speaker number 2, Ms. Joyce, you spoke for 7 minutes and 12 seconds. Speaker number 3, Patricia, you spoke for 8 minutes and 8 seconds. And on table topics, David, you spoke for 1 minute and 44 seconds. And evaluator, Dr. Jerome, you spoke for 1 minute and 12 seconds. And evaluator Charlie, he spoke for 2 minutes 42 seconds. And Ms. Antoinette, as evaluator, you spoke for 1 minute and 5 seconds. That's my timer's report. Thank you.
All right. So for the sake of time, I really didn't have any comments as far as the general evaluating of the meeting. I did not show up on time, so did we start on time today? We did. So we started on time today, and we're a little bit behind, but we were able to catch up on that. So I want to turn this over to our presiding officer, Anthony.
I would like to ask this question of everyone. How do you feel when? How do you feel when? How do you feel when you are accepted? How do you feel when you are rejected? How are you feeling when someone gives you a positive note, shake your hand, tell you you've done a great job? Or how do you feel on the opposite end when someone is chewing you out? I may not know it all, Toastmaster members, but I want you to know that I'm giving it my best. When you hear me or when you see me do something out of line, come to me in a gentle way. I want that to be out in the open, please. I am the president. I thank you for electing me, and I am planning to fulfill the roles. If I get off, Joyce, come to me afterwards and let me know. When the members do something, and that's for everybody, when we're doing something that's not right, let's agree as a team that we will come to each other gently with a purpose and give that. I don't know everything. I am learning when I tell you I'm learning. One last thing, I appreciate you guys coming to this lectern. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of research. You decided to come again, Shauna. Let's congratulate her. I have learned in my past 60-some years that first-time experience is the hardest, but it's your best learning lesson. Even better when you've got people that are around you. So I celebrate everyone. We all have our gifts. We all have our weaknesses. We all have our challenges. But let's come together and work together. I mean that from my heart. Let's close this meeting out. All right? Meeting adjourned. Great job. Great meeting.